You're good to go.
All right. We left off at the bottom of today's Ayin test in Maseches Pesachim. So we left off at the bottom of Ayin Ches and Beis. There's a couple of Montanas. So we left off Montana, the 1, 2, 3, fourth, or 6 lines from the bottom. 6 lines from the bottom. So Montana Loha to Tan Rabbanan. Who was the author who taught this to Tan Rabbanan? So just you'll see, bring us on to what we discussed yesterday. I'll bring it back in. So Shachtu b'Tahara v'Acharkach Nitva Ba'alam. So we had a whole shadow of the Machlokes between Rab Nosson and the Rabbanan regarding a Korban Pesach, which perhaps is brought betuma. They can't eat it. Is a person yaitz or not, even though he didn't go ahead and it was not able to eat? So that Rab Nosson says yes, Rabbanan no. So who was the author who taught this? Shachtu b'Tahara. If it was shechted b'Tahara, everything was going well. Afterwards, the owners became tameh. So what do you do with the blood? So yizrak hadam b'Tahara. You go ahead and you sprinkle the blood b'Tahara. But don't eat the meat. In other words, you're yaitze the mitzvah. You're allowed to go ahead and sprinkle it. So come on. So who's that? So Rabbi Elazar. It's Machlokes Shnuya in terms of what we said earlier between Machlokes Rabbanan and Rab Nosson, and this would be the sheet of Rab Nosson, who holds that you can go ahead and do the zrika, even though the person was not fit because he was tummy. You can still do the zrika, and it's okay. Rabbi Yechanan Amar Afilu Timei Rabbanan. Maybe we can say it's the Rabbanan. Maybe we're over here. We're talking about B'tzibur. They were talking about everybody was tameh, right? That they can do betuma, so therefore they can even do the zrika betuma, no problem. And if that's the case, why can't they eat the basar betuma, right? Just go ahead and eat the basar. We say the case of hutra betuma, actually, which is going to be the next mishnah, right? Where we would be discussing when all of Bnei Yisrael, a row of Bnei Yisrael is tameh, you can go ahead and you do it betuma. So over here, the basar is not even eating betuma. Why is that? Right? So say what's the case? Perhaps what's going to happen is that they become tamei and after the zrika, and they'll say, well, last year, right? Last year, in other words, when everyone was tamei, we went ahead and we ate even after the zrika. So too, let's go ahead and eat. They won't know that the year before, the reason why they're able to go ahead and eat because everyone was tamei during the zrika, right? But now they were Torah. So therefore, only if they come tamei afterwards, that would be a problematic. So therefore, in order that for people to confuse with that the fact whether they became tamei before or after the zrika, therefore they always say that don't go ahead and eat the basar. Or now, put that all aside. So that was that case. That was the explanation of who that brisa was, either Rab Nosson or the Rabbanan. Now, the Iba Yisema, going back to what we said earlier, right? We had a question of that if the meat, the basar became tamei afterwards, that it's still okay, that it works. V'Iba Yisema, Rav the Amar Rav Yeshua, Rav's halacha that he brought yesterday, right? So I can go ahead and find it. So Rav said, right. So Rav was the one who said that Rav Gidam Rav, which is right after the Mishnah. He said that if the basar became tamei, right, you don't go ahead and don't be zarek es adam. And he said over there, but if they did the zrika, it works. So why does it work? So he goes, same Rav Dam Rav Yeshua. He also like Rav Yeshua at the time when Rabbi said Rabbi Yeshua Imer kol zachim shavatayra bein shenit babasar v'chelav kayim bein shenit v'chelav babasar kayim. Whether it's the case of that the basar became tamei and the chelav was good. The chelav, the fats that are going on these baths are tahor. Or the chelav became tamei, but the basar is okay. Zarek hasadam, you go ahead and do the zrika. However, a case of a nazir who has to bring his korban, or if Yosef Pesach, a person brings his korban Pesach, nitma chelav basar kayim. Zarek hasadam, if the chelav that goes on his mizbeach it becomes tamei, and therefore you can't go ahead and you put on the mizbeach, but the basar is kayim, then you can go ahead and do the zrika. However, nitma basar the chelav kayim, but if the meat that they're supposed to go ahead and consume becomes tamei. Right, ein zarek dam. You don't go ahead and zarek dam. V'im zarak hurtza. But if you go ahead and you throw it, hurtza, it does work. I.e., this is exactly like Rab. And nitma ba'alim b'meis. However, that was talking about if the meat itself became tummy. But if the owners, right, if the nazir or the person bringing korban pesach, they became tummy, then lo yizrak, they should not go ahead and throw it. V'im zarak lo hurts. And if you go ahead and do the zrika, then it does not work. Fine, 2 dots. So he said by the case of the korban yesterday in the Mishnah, it said over there in the if the meat is kayim, is still good, then zarik esadam. And then the Mishnah said, right? I'm just reading from the quote. The Mishnah says, even if the basar became bad, but since the chaylev that can go on mizbeach is still tar, you go ahead and you continue with the korban. So Masnisin Mani, who's our Mishnah like? So Rabbi Shua, it's like Rabbi Shua. Titania, we're learning in the Bryce. It says Rabbi Shua Amir calls Zachish B'Tayra. Any korban in the Torah, Shnishtar Behem, Kazayis Basar, Kazayis Chaylev. And if you have with it either Kazayis Basar or Kazayis Chaylev, Zarik Zadam. As long as they have either the flesh, either the basar, the meat, or the chaylev, the fats are burned on mizbeach, then you can go ahead and continue with the korban. Kazai, Chatzi Zai is basar, Chatzi Zai is chaylev. Let's say you half of each, have a kazayis, and total is a kazayis. Ein zarik zadam. You do not go ahead and be zarik zadam. Uva ola, when it comes to a korban ola, afilu Chatzi Zai is basar, Chatzi Zai is chaylev. Even if you have a half of each, and their combined total is a kazayis. Zarik Sadam, then you go ahead and you can go ahead and do a Zrika Sadam because it all goes on this back. So therefore, you have a half a kazayis of basar and half a kazayis of the chaylev going on this back, which is a total of kazayis, and therefore it's good. Uva mincha, when it comes to mincha, by mincha, even if all of it is still around, right? Then, but everything else became tamei, and you have the mincha lo yizrak. So Gemara says mincha might be dasei. What we're talking about mincha? Who's talking about a mincha? We're talking about an animal. So minchas nesachim, right? There are libations that go along with the animal, and therefore, perhaps, let's say the animal itself is the meat became tamei, but you have the wine, right, which is still in existence, which is tahara. So came in the cost. So since it becomes because of the korban, so therefore, and since it's tahar, maybe that qualifies as going to mizbech with tahara. Kamash b'lan, that it is considered to be nothing. Fine. So chaylev. So now we're returning to the chaylev. So minalon. So from where do we know that? So Amar Rabbi Yechon, Mishun Rabbi Shmuel. It says Rabbi Yechon says the name Rabbi Shmuel. Umataban some say Mishun Rabbi Shua in Chananya. The Amar Kar the pasuk says V'hikter hachelev l'reach nichoach la'Hashem. So it says you go ahead and you burn the chaylev as a reich nichoach, right, a pleasant aroma for Hashem. So chaylev af b'shein basar. So we see over there that chaylev, even though not basar, even though the chaylev is good on it, so that's sufficient on its own. So Ashkan chaylev. Okay, we find chaylev yaseres hakavi v'shtei klayos menon. So in addition to the fats, there's also right the kidneys, the liver, and right they go on to the mizbeach, right? Or the I guess the kaved is like the diaphragm, right? So that then the shtei klayos and the kidneys menon. So heichadam rinan the zerakina. And so where do we say that we throw megatani? It says over there, uva mincha afal pisha kula kayemes lo yizra. Right. So the Bryce said over there that by even of all the mincha, he says that the minchas esachem, even if that's all kayem lo yizra, then you should not go ahead and throw because there's no meat. So minchu delo. So it's only if the mincha, right, that you don't. Sounds like aval yaser sakave ushtek klaya is shapir dami, but it sounds like over there that it would be good, right? If any part of the animal, even right, the Yisrael's kaved ushtek klayos, it would be sufficient. And minale, Rabbi Yechanan did so minal so is shabidami. So you say minalan. So how do we know this? So Rabbi Yechanan didei Omar, he says Omar the pasuk says l'reich nichoach, right? The pasuk over there says, right, that we just brought v'ikter hachel l'reich nichoach, right? What does it mean l'reich nichoach? Kol she'atam ala l'reich nichoach. Anything that is a reich nichoach is included. That as long as that is kayim, as long as that's not b'tahara as a kazayis, then it's okay. It has to say both in the pasuk chaylev and reich nichoach. Why? If it was just taught chaylev, havamina chaylev ina says v'kavedu shtei klayos lo. I would have thought only dav with the chaylev, but any of the other parts that go on these back that get burnt, I would have that would not be good enough. So therefore the Torah reich nichoach, that even those other parts, not including the fats, those parts count as going on the mizbeach in order to go ahead and continue with the korban. And if it just said rech nichoach, I would have thought kol ha'oilin l'rech nichoach. Anything that is a rech nichoach, afilu bincha, even the wine libations. So therefore, kasav rachmana chelev. Therefore, it is chelev to teach us that any part of the animal, the chelev, right, the klayos, the yaseres, hakaved, right, and all the parts that are supposed to go on the mizbech, all those are considered to be part of the korban. That if that is, you have a kazayis of those b'tahara, then even though the basar, all the other parts that became tameh, you still go ahead and continue with that korban tzibur. Fine. Naya Mishnah. Mishnah says we're discussing a case of Pesach Sheni. Real quick, Pesach Sheni, we say that if most of Bnei Yisrael, actually the Mishnah is actually going to say the halacha, but the halacha is that we bring the Karban Pesach on the 14th of Nisan, and for whatever reason the person is tamei, then he gets pushed off till till the next month, right? Till Iyar. 30 days later, and he brings in the 14th, and he eats it Pesach Sheni on the night of the 15th. Now, that is only if it's a minority of people. But if you have a majority, we say instead of everybody making Pesach Sheni or a majority making Pesach Sheni, everybody just do it Betuma on Pesach Rishon on the first Pesach. Fine, so let's see. Zok the Mishnah. Nitma, Kahal, or Rubo, if the congregation became Tameh, or a majority of it, or the Kohanim were the ones who are Tameh, but even the Kal is Tahor, Yasu Betuma, then they do Betuma. So if you have a majority of either the Kohanim or a majority of the people of the congregation, then you do it Betuma. Yasu Betuma. And Nitma Miut Hakal, however, it's only a minority, then then the majority, obviously, all the Torah people do it now during Pesach Rishon. That's main, and the minority of Tamei and those Aisin Asashini. They go ahead and they do it over Pesach Sheni. Fine. Tony Rabban. Haresha you Yisrael Tamein v'Kohanim v'Kli Shareis Taharin. If you have a case of Yisrael who are Tamei and the Kohanim and Kli Shareis are Tahor, or you have Shayu Yisrael Taharim v'Kohanim v'Kli Shareis Tamein, or you have the Yisrael are Tahor, but the Kohanim and the Kli Shareis and the vessels and the Kohanim they are Tamei. And the Afili Yisrael v'Kohanim Tahor. And even if you have the Yisrael and the Kohanim Tahor, however Kli Shareis Tamein, but the Kli Shareis, right, the utensils that are used for the shechita, for the accepting of the blood, are tamei, yasu betuma. Then you go ahead, and that is considered to be a year where you do it betuma. If it's a majority, shein korban sibur chaluk, right? Because you don't go ahead and have a korban sibur, divided amongst people. If you have the majority doing a betuma, you do it betuma. And Amar Rav Chizda says, Rav Chizda, what type of klicharis is lashon el shnit b'hasakim b'tamei meis? We're only talking about if the knife became tamei, or the knives, right? Majority of them, right, became tamei through tumas meis. It says over there that the basically the sword, right, is like the body, right? Right. So the sword that kills a person is just like that comes at avatuma, right? So it says so the sword becomes just like the corpse. It become a time of the gabri, and therefore, since over here we're talking about the case of this knife is now has touched a dead body, so therefore that goes and makes the person tamei. He himself is tamei. And therefore, this Kohen, this person is now, he is considered to be a person who's tamei, who, if he would go ahead and consume, right, the korban tahara, he would be kares. And aval, but nitma sakim b'tumas sheretz. But if the knife was only b'tamei b'tumas sheretz, then the basar the b'tamei le garlo b'tamei. If that knife basically became tamei because it touched a sheretz, right? So therefore, that knife only is matami the meat, but it's not matami the person. So therefore, the person is tahor. So taharin avid, tamei lo avid, and therefore, in this year, since it doesn't make the people tamei, so therefore you have a majority of being tahor, and just those people who happen to be tamei, i.e., for other reasons, right? They went out to the Korban Pesach. Why? And therefore we say, and even though the meat is now tamei from the most of the knives, right? Mutav yechel b'tumas basar b'lav v'al yechel basar b'tumas aguf shu b'kares. Right? It's better. It's not as big of an issue. It's only a lav if the meat itself is tamei and a person who's tahor consumes it. That's only a lav. So therefore, that's okay because that was touched by tumas sheretz, as opposed to if an individual is tamei and the meat is tahor, that is a kares. So therefore, since this year, since the knives only became tamei through tumas sheretz, therefore it's only a lav, and therefore go ahead and treat it like a normal year, where those people go ahead and bring their carbon. And Alma, it must be that Rav Chisda holds Tuma Duchuyu B'tzibur. Rabbi Yitzchak Tuma Duchuyu B'tzibur. So we see over here that we learn that Tuma is Duchuyu B'tzibur, that the Tuma is basically pushed off because we say we make different conditions, whether it's Tumas Sheretz or Tumas Mace. So therefore, according to this opinion, it must be that it's not just, it's Tuma, everything is mutter. Rather, we say, no, let's, okay, we'll push off if it's, Tumas Cherev or Tumas Mace, but we're not going to push off for Tumas Sheretz. Rav Omar, Afilu Tamei Nami Avdi. Even if it's only the knives are only Matami Tumas Sheretz, then that's considered to be a year where basically this year is done Batuma, and there nobody who's Tamei has to wait for Pesach Sheni. Everybody just do it now. My time, what's the reason? See, the pasuk says, "V'habasar asher yiga v'chol tamei." So somebody who touches something which is tamei, so referring to a person who becomes tamei, lo yechol, he shouldn't eat. B'eshti sarif, you go ahead and burn it and not eat it. V'habasar kol tor yechol basar. And then it says over there, you go ahead and eat something, right? If you're tor, you go ahead and eat something which is tor. So kol heichad lo karina bei v'habasar asher yiga b'chol tamei lo yechol lo karina bei v'habasar kol tor yechol basar. So in other words, the two halachas are together, right? And where we don't say, in other words, if you're somebody who is tamei and you can't eat it, so therefore we'll also say if the meat becomes tamei in your tahor, you can't eat it. And go heichad the karina bei v'habasar asher yiga b'chol tamei lo yechol karina bei v'habasar kol tor yechol basar, right? And but if a person is not tamei, right, he is not tamei, and therefore he's able to go ahead and eat. So therefore we would go ahead and allows only in that case would person be chayiv a lav for eating something which is tamei. So basically they go hand in hand. In other words, we don't say, right, that even though, right, it's only a lav, so it's better to go ahead and bring it to betuma where you're eating the meat because the meat is tamei, but you're tar because it's only tuma sheretz. According to Rava, that doesn't work like that. They go hand in hand. Once you can't eat it, you can't eat it. So basically, it's the same thing. If it's tamei and you chayv a lav, it's no different than if you yourself are tamei, i.e., from tumas aguf, and therefore we override it. So just like we override it if the person is tamei tumas mace because the knife was from tamei mace, so too we override it when the knife was a tumas sheretz, even though it's only a lav, it's overridden. Just like we override the other case, and the two cases always go hand in hand, and we do not make a difference in the case. Fine. Now comes part 2 of the shir today. Itmar, 5 lines from the bottom on Ayin Tes Amud Aleph. Horei Shah Yisrael Mechza Tahari Mechza Tamei. 50-50. Exactly 50-50. Don't ask me how do we know, right? It just is 50-50. That's the case. Now, 50-50. Machlokes. We're going to have basically 3 shitas. All right? Itmar, Horei Shah Yisrael Mechza Tahari Mechza Tamei. 50-50. Rav Omar Mechza al Mechza Karov. All right, we hold 50-50 is a case of a majority. All right, we'll explain what that means. All right, that's Rav. Rav Kahana Omar Mechza Mechza in a Karov. And Rav Kahana says it's not a rov. It's not a majority. 50-50 is not a majority. Majority means 51%. Now, Rav Omar Mechza Mechza Karov. How do you explain it? Halu Oisin Latzman, Halu Oisin Latzman. If you have a case of 50 are tummy and 50 are tahor, so in other words, over here, 50% of the taharim do a tahara, and the other 50% are, since it's like a majority are tamei. Therefore, they do it that year betuma, right? Pesach Rishon. For Rav Kahana Omar, mechza mechza karov. 50-50 is not considered to be rov. Taharim oisin. Therefore, the people are tahar like any other year. You go ahead and do a tahara. Oisin is a rishon. Utmei, and the people are tamei. Since you don't have a majority that are tamei, so oisin is a sheni. They get pushed off to Pesach Sheni. Okay, that is the first lishna of Rav Kahana. We're going to have two lishonis in Rav Kahana, or 2 understandings. That was the first one. That was a lishna kama. Now, ika de amri. The others hold as Amar Rav Kahana. We have to remember this because we're going to go through all 3 of them again. Amar Rav Kahana, he still says mechsa and a karov. It's 50-50 is not considered a majority. Right? It's like a minority. Tahari noisin sarishon, just like we said, the people who are tahor, they go ahead and like every other year they do it, but tahara. It's utmein. Turn the page. Now it's going to give us the difference. Utmein ein noisin lo es harishon lo es hashem. The people who are tameh, they cannot do it this year, or excuse me, this month, and they can't do Pesach Rishon or Pesach Shem. They don't do it at all. Why is that? Right? Barishon layavdi delahavi ruba. They can't do it betuma in the first one. Why? Because they don't have a majority as tameh. Ubasheni layavdi delahavi miyuta. And the second one you can't do it because they're also not a miyut. In order to go ahead and be pushed off the Pesach Sheni, you have to be minority. Since there weren't a minority to be pushed off, so therefore they don't also have Pesach Sheni. Therefore, basically, they're stuck in the middle. They're not majority. They don't get to override it. And they're not a minority to get pushed off to Pesach Sheni, right? They're like 50-50. So that was the three opinions. Now, we're going to have... So Tanan...
Who is this opinion?
What is it?
Who's
the third opinion?
The opinion of the one that you don't do neither?
That is the second lashon of Rav Kahana.
Of Rav Kahana, right? That's what I know. Okay.
Right. The last two were Rav Kahana, right? But the question was, when they say they're not a rove, what is the effect? Does it mean they get pushed off to Pesach Sheni, or does it mean they don't do it at all? That was the question. Fine.
Okay.
So let's see. So tonight I'm going to the Mishnah. Our Mishnah says Nitma Kala Rubo Kohanim Tamei Vakal Taharim Yaseh Betuma. If you have the majority or all of them of the Yisrael, the Kohanim, they come Tamei and the Kalas Tahar Yaseh Betuma. So it sounds like over there Rubo Davdi Betuma. Only if it's a majority do they do it. If Al Pago Loavdi Karishan. But if it's only 50-50, right? They wouldn't do it, right? The reasons, that's a kasha and Rav, because according to Rav, right, it sounds like only if it's a majority, but it's 50-50, it's not like a majority. So Rav would say no, Ruba of the Kula Batuma, right? What it means, if it's a majority, then everybody does a Batuma. Palgo, but it's 50-50. Halois and Leasan, Halois and Leasan. Everyone does it on their own. Those who are Tahar do it Tahara. And those who are Batuma, right, they do it Batuma, and therefore it agrees with what Rav said. And Hochinami Mistabim, it's also logical to say, the Tani Sefer, the Sefer says, Nitma Miyatakal, if minority became Tame, Taharin Aisin is a Rishon, Tame Aisin is a Sheni. Then the those who are Tahar do Pesach Rishon, and those who are Tame do Pesach Sheni. It sounds like over there, Miyatu Davdi B'Sheni, only when it's a minority of Al Palgo Lo, but it sounds like if it was 50-50, they wouldn't go to Pesach Sheni. But they would do it in the first one. And therefore, just like I said earlier, says Rav, right? Each one does their own. Those who are tahor have to do it with tahara because they're not right. It's not exactly a majority of tameh, and therefore they do it with tahara. And those who are tameh do it bituma. If that's the case, kasha Rav Kahana, but kasha Rav Kahana, because Rav Kahana didn't say right. Everybody does the Pesach Rishon. His two lashonos are either the Tameh group does in a Pesach Sheni, or the second Lashon, according to him, they don't do it at all. So Rav Kahana, so he says, no, hakal, if you have a minority become Tameh, then Tahar and Aisin is a Rishon, but Tameh and Aisin is a Sheni, right? If you have a minority, in other words, you're right. According to that, which it says over there, that a minority is Tameh, so then yes, the Taurus does Rishon, the Tmeim does Pesach Sheni, and sounds like Palgo is 50-50. Tahar Naisin is a Rishon. Then the Tahar ones do the Rishon about Tmeim. Ein Naisin lois a Rishon lois a Sheni. But if you don't 50-50, then they don't do it at all. They don't get pushed to Pesach Sheni. They can't do the first.
So the only way to solve Rabbi Kahana is few of the Horim should be Tmeim, and then there is no 50-50. So then everybody does Korban Pesach. So it's never going to happen that nobody does Korban Pesach at all.
We're not saying how to go ahead and fix it. That's not the question of can people go ahead and have one person go ahead and become Tameh in order to the rove, right?
Right. This way you don't go no machloket. There's a majority Tmeim. Finish.
That would be the case, but that's not the question. The question is not can you go ahead and be Tameh? And first of all, who says that would even work, right? Are you allowed to do that, right? So the question is, what if they do
for
it?
For Korban Pesach? If you wanted to Korban Pesach, I would be tempted to be Yotzei for Korban Pesach that year.
I understand that, but then you're not doing Hara. So the Gemara is not dealing with that issue. The Gemara is not dealing with
Okay, all
how
right.
to
Just a thought. Just a thought.
Right. But I hear what you're saying. Now, Hinach Lishna Basra. So that which we just said, Rav Kahana, right? That's exactly what Lishna Basra says. The Torah people do it now, and the Talmud people can't do it now or later if it's 50-50, right? Hinach
Right.
Lishna Rav Kahana. Elohach Lishna Damar Rav Kahana, but according to the first Lishna Rav Kahana, where he said Taharim Isis a Rishon, Tmein Isis a Sheni, that the first Torah, the Torahs do Pesach Rishon and the Tmein do Pesach Sheni. Ma'ikla Meimer. Well, how are you going to answer up? So Rav Kahana, who didn't the afilu palga nami? Even if it's 50-50, not just a minority, right? The Tmeim get pushed out to Pesach Sheni, but even if it's 50-50, the Tmeim get pushed out to Pesach Sheni. Tarim is a Rishon in that case, then the Tarim do the Pesach Rishon, Tmeim is a Sheni. V'hai diktani miyut hakal. So why did it say miyut hakal? She just said 50-50, that's what it does. I ditana reisha rubo, tananami sefa miyut. Since the reisha used the word majority, therefore the sefa used minority, but it was lavdaf minority, it would even 50-50. But now, so we have three opinions, and now just so happens to be, we're going to bring up three different brises that support each opinion, and then we'll have to answer up how the other two opinions work with that brisa. So let's see. And that will be the end of the shir till we get to the bottom. So we're going to get to the three lines from the bottom in case people have to jump off early. I know it's getting late. So Tani Kavase the Rav Kahana Kitrei Lishne. So we have a Bryce in support of Rav and Bryce in support of Kahana, both the Shanis. Tani Kavase the Rav, how you so Mechza Tari Mechza Tamein, Halu Oisin Atzman, Halu Oisin Atzman. Each one does it. Each one does it by themselves. If it was 50-50, which is exactly like Rav said. And Tanya Kalishna Kama to Rav Kahana. We also have a Bryce exactly in support of the Lishna Kama Rav Kahana. Well, case Harisha Yisrael Mechza Tari Mechza Tamei. And if you had Yisrael who was half Tar and half Tamei, Tahari and Isins a Rishon, and Tamei and Isins a Sheni. Then you have the Tahar ones do the Pesach Rishon, and the Tamei ones get pushed out to Pesach Sheni, which is exactly like he said in the case of 50-50. But Tani Kavase the Kalishna Basid of Kana. Harisha Yisrael Mechza Tari Mechza Tamei. If you have 50-50, Tahari and Isins a Rishon, then those are Tahar do a Pesach Rishon. If it's Tamei, those Tameim. In Isin Las the Rishon Las the Shem. They don't do it at all. Now, Bryce's beautiful, worked out perfectly. Now the question is, okay, how do the other ones answer the different Bryces? Ula Rav, Ula Lishna Basa Rav Kahana. Okay, so let's deal with number two. According to Rav, and the last Lishna Basa Rav Kahana. So Ha Detana. What about the one which says Ha Detana Tyron Isin the Rishon Tmeis the Sheni? How can you go the Bryce which seems to say that the Tarim do now Tmeim go to Pesach Sheni? How do you answer that? So now we're going to basically use the same answer for all of the brises, just in different ways. They're going to use it to their ways. Kigon, Shahayu Yisrael Mechza Tahar and Mechza Tameim. You're right. It was 50-50. The Nashim Mashlimos L'Tameim. And that which we said that it was 50-50, it was including the women. And they were all, the majority of the women were Tamei, so that made it 50-50. V'ksavar Nashim Barishon Rishus. And it held that the Nashim are not really counted in the first one. So therefore, Dal Nashim Itzmain. So therefore, you go ahead, since they were adding up to be the Tamei, but they're not really included, right? So you remove them, V'havilu Tmei Miuta. And therefore, including them, it was 50-50. But since they're not really obligated the same as the men, right? So therefore, they wouldn't go to Pesach Sheni. So therefore, you remove them. Now you have only a minority of people who are Tamei. Everyone agrees that if you have a minority of people who are Tamei, then it gets pushed off to Pesach Sheni. Okay, so now let's do Rav and the first Lishna Kama. How do you explain the Bryce, the third Bryce that we brought? The Bryce which seemed to say that if it was 50-50, that the Tmeim wouldn't do Pesach Rishon, wouldn't do Pesach Sheni. How do you explain that? So Rav Mataritz Law, Rav explained it his way. It was 50-50. But if you include the women, right, then there's more. Most of the women were tahor, right? And he says their obligation in the beginning, it should be counted, right? But when it comes to Pesach Sheni, they're not obligated. So therefore, barishon lo yavdi. So therefore, in the first one, if you go ahead and include the women since they're obligated, you include them and they're all tahar. So therefore, those who are tamei, they wouldn't do the Pesach Rishon. Why? Because the havila miyut. Because the tamei people are only a minority. Because when you include the women, there now it's a minority, and therefore they would not do it at all. Right, and therefore, since they're a miyut, they wouldn't do the first one, betuma. Also, they wouldn't do the second one. Why? Dal nashim and because you go ahead and you remove the woman because they're not obligated. Therefore, it was 50-50. When you have 50-50, then you don't do Pesach Sheni. You were supposed to do Pesach Rishon, but you couldn't do Pesach Rishon because you included the woman, and therefore these people who are tamei wouldn't do Pesach Rishon and wouldn't do Pesach Sheni. Rav Kahana, and according to Rav Kahana, he said that 50-50 they would do Pesach Sheni. So how does he answer up the other Lishna, right? He would say like this: yes, it was 50-50 when you look at the men of half or Tara, half or Tameh. The Nashim Mashlimas L'Tar, but that was including the women, right? Including the women to get to 50-50, and because most of them were tahor, and including for 50-50, and you hold that the women are considered to be a chiyuv when it comes to the first one, it was sheni rishus, and the second one, the rishus. Therefore, barishon in the first one, you don't go ahead, the people who are tamei can't go ahead and do it. Why? Because it's only 50-50. And according to Rav Kahana, 50-50 is not considered a majority. So therefore, they can't override the tumah, and therefore they wouldn't go ahead and do it with Pesach Rishon. And therefore, if you have only 50-50 and the first one, they wouldn't do it. And also the second Pesach Sheni, they wouldn't be able to bring. Why is that? Because Dal Nashim and therefore, if you go ahead and remove the tahor women, because they're not obligated Pesach Sheni, Havilu, Tamei, and Aruba. Therefore, it turns out that you have a majority of those who are tamei, but rubel of the sheni, and therefore, if you have a majority of tamei, then that's not. Then they don't get Pesach Sheni. They're supposed to do Pesach Rishon. So therefore, those people are stuck. Now, finally, Rav Kahana, and now the first brisa they brought that seemed to be like Rav or Rav Kahana, Hadatanya, that which we the first brisa we thought we brought that was in support. Hadatanya the brisa that said it was 50-50, 50 tar and 50 tamei. Each one does their own. The tar do it patara, and those who are tamei are allowed to do it betuma. How do you answer that? So Kahana, you'd say no. Lamaisa, he would say he has to say it's a machlokes. It's a machlokes tonight. He would have to, Rav Kahana would be forced to say that there must be a machlokes tonight who hold that 50-50, whether that's a majority or not, and that's the reason why half do, some do, the Torah ones do it b'tahara, and the Tamei ones do it b'tuma, and we will stop here. Everyone have a wonderful day. Shkayach. And tomorrow, Mit Hashem, same time. Shkayach.